Welcome back to the Start an Epic Freelance Business Master Course. I'm Josh Hoffman of Epic Freelancing, and in this lesson we are going to talk about the business principles that every freelancer needs to know, or definitely should know, in terms of building and growing a successful freelance business. And so we're going to look at 6 primary terms, starting with supply and demand. And so you've probably heard this economic term supply and demand before, right? And basically there's 4 rules or 4 sets of laws, if you will, within supply and demand. So you have supply goes up, demand goes down, supply goes down, demand goes up, supply goes up, demand goes up, and supply goes down, demand goes down. Those are the 4 types of situations in which supply and demand are correlated. And the situations that we want to focus on are 2 of those 4, which is what happens when supply goes up and demand goes down, and vice versa. What happens when supply goes down and demand goes up. And the thing with supply and demand is that it's truly, like you see here, a balance. So when one goes up and one goes down, that's how it works. It's not a situation usually where supply is high and demand is high, and vice versa. And so let's talk about the first situation, which is when supply goes up and demand goes down, or vice versa. Demand goes down and therefore supply is up. And so supply as a freelancer is understanding that you are really supplying your time. Even though you're supplying services and your skills and your experiences that you've had before and your abilities and all that kind of stuff, you're really supplying time, because services take time to provide. And so whether or not you charge per hour or you charge per project or whatever, you're still supplying time at the end of the day. And so in terms of supply, it's how much time you have available every day and every week to give to clients. And you determine how much available time you have. Is it 30 hours a week? Is it 40 hours a week? Is it 10 hours a week? Is it 80 hours a week? So you really have to think about, on a bigger picture, lifestyle design standpoint, how much available time do you want to be working in your business for your clients, and also working on your business, which we'll talk about the difference between working in your business and on your business later on in the master course. All right, so first think about, how much available time do I want to provide? Do I want to put out there to work in and on my business? All right, now in terms of demand is quite straightforward. It's how much people want to work with you. How many people want to work with you at the price that you want to charge? And so this is how it works. All right, you have supply and demand, and again, they're correlated. There's a relationship between the 2. And you want to find that equilibrium, that equal point where you have equal supply and demand, where they meet at that intersection. And what that means is essentially you want to figure out, how many clients do I need to fit into my available time at the price that I want to charge? Again, how many clients do I need to fit into my amount of available time, my supply, at the price that I want to charge? And so you might have a situation where if you start really, really low in terms of your pricing, let's just say you charge per hour and you charge $10 an hour. Well, you're going to probably get a lot of people who are willing to pay $10 an hour, assuming you're good at what you do, because that's really cheap, right? So you're going to have high demand. And all of a sudden, because you have high demand for people who want to work with you at $10 an hour, you're going to have eventually low supply of available time. Since all these people want to work with you, you're not going to have a lot of time in terms of the available time that you want to dedicate to your business. Now, on the flip side, if you charge $1,000 an hour, right, you're probably not going to find a lot of people who are willing and interested to pay $1,000 an hour. Maybe you can, I don't know. I don't think I can. And so you're going to have very low demand for your time, and therefore very high supply of your available time. So again, you want to find that medium, that middle ground between those 2 situations, where you can find a good price point where you can get the kind of clients, the amount of clients that you want to work with, who are willing to pay the kind of prices that you want to charge in order to live the lifestyle that you want to live. And when you find that equilibrium between supply and demand, again, supply of your available time and demand of how many clients want to work with you at any given time, that's where you can charge the kind of money you want to make within the amount of time that you want to work. All right, moving forward to customer lifetime value, or in this case, we call customers clients, so we can also call it client lifetime value. And client or customer lifetime value, however you want to call it, is by far the most important metric in any business, because it ultimately determines how much money you can make per client over the lifetime of your relationship with them. And so it actually looks like this. You take the average purchase amount and you multiply that by the average number of purchases, and then you multiply that by the average retention time. Again, average purchase amount multiplied by average number of purchases multiplied by average retention time. So here's an example. Let's say you're a blogger, right? And you charge $100 per blog post. Now you're going to take that and you're going to multiply it by 4 blog posts per month. Let's just say you give a client 1 blog post a week or 4 a month. And then you ultimately end up working with the average client for 6 months. So you're going to take $100 times 4 blog posts per month times 6 months. And that gives you $2,400, which is the lifetime value of that specific client. Now, over time, you'll have to find the average of these things. When you're starting a freelance business, you're not really going to know, again, in this situation, how much you can charge for a blog post and how many blog posts you're going to write per month, and then how many months you're going to work with a client. So using this example, we can understand that for this specific type of freelancer under these circumstances, the lifetime customer value is $2,400. Could be more for you, could be less. I can tell you for my business as a digital marketing consultant and strategist, I'm hovering around this amount of money, $2,400 per client. Alrighty, moving forward, marketing, probably the second most important term on this list. And marketing is simply the process of standing out, of creating value, and of staying relevant in the minds of your ideal clients until they are willing, able, and ready to hire you. Now, I said process, and I use that word for a reason, because process implies that it takes time. And therefore, marketing is a process that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with a LinkedIn account. It doesn't happen with one blog post or one podcast episode or one course. It's a systematic process that takes time to develop because, again, we're talking about staying relevant, creating value, and standing out until your clients are ready, willing, and able to hire you. So willing means they trust you, takes time to develop trust. Able means they have the financial means, and ready means that the timing is right for them. So therefore, it is your job to proactively market yourself to, again, stand out in their minds, create value in their minds so that you can charge top dollar or maximize the value that they feel you're worth, and then stay relevant until they are willing, until they are able, until they are ready to hire you as the person that they want for the job. Personal branding or a personal brand, I'm sure you've heard this term before. It's certainly one of the buzzwords of the day, and it's actually pretty correlated with marketing, meaning there's a lot of overlap with personal branding and marketing. And in terms of personal branding, it's that same process. It's how do you stand out, how do you create value, and how do you stay relevant in people's minds. The difference with marketing and personal branding is that with marketing, you often focus on you as a professional, right? These are my services. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm skilled in. These are the abilities and the experiences that I have. That's you as a professional, and that's great. You certainly have to have that sort of presence and that sort of platform in order to promote yourself and to get the clients that you want to work with at the price that you want to charge. No question about it. But on the flip side of a personal brand is we have this word personal and personal brand. And for whatever reason, the personal and personal brand tends to get overlooked. And so as you're thinking about building your personal brand, or maybe you already have a personal brand and you want to take it to the next level, you have to find that middle ground between who you are as a professional and who you are as a person. Don't be afraid to interject your personality, your personal experiences, your passions, your interests that go beyond you as a professional into marketing yourself as a professional. And when you can do that, that's when you really expedite the process of developing that trust, and then ultimately get to a place where people are coming to you and say, I want to work specifically with you, Josh Hoffman. Not just you, a digital marketer, because there's hundreds of thousands of digital marketers, but I want to work specifically with you, Josh Hoffman. And when you can get to a place where people are saying, I want to work specifically with you because of who you are and what you can do, again, your professional aspects and your personal aspects, now you control the situation because there's only one of you. And if there's only one of you, you can charge the kind of money that you want to charge as a freelancer. All right, moving on to fixed and variable costs. So fixed costs, are simply costs that stay the same regardless of how much you use them. So let's say you build yourself a website, right? And on the website you have a blog, and every day you write a new blog post. So whether you write one blog post a week, or 10 a week, or 100 a week, or 3,000 a month, the cost of maintaining that website, if you're using Squarespace or GoDaddy or WordPress, whatever it is, the cost stays the same. Doesn't matter how much you use your website. Same thing with an email address, right? If you have, for me, it's josh@socialmediajosh.com. So I'm paying $5 a month for that @socialmediajosh.com email address, and it doesn't matter if I'm sending one email a day or 2,000 emails a day. So those are my fixed costs. On the flip side, we have variable costs, and variable costs are essentially costs that change depending on usage. So the more you use it, the more it's going to cost you, and vice versa. The less you use it, the less it's going to cost you. So for instance, let's say you have a car and you drive to client meetings, right? Well, if you have 10 client meetings in a month and you drive to 10 different meetings, you're using more of your car, which means you're probably going to pay more for gasoline because you're using more gas. That would be a variable cost, right? Whereas if you have a car and you're paying a monthly payment, the payment doesn't really matter how much you use the car, right? The payment stays the same. So if your payment for your car is, let's say, $200 a month, that would be a fixed cost, because whether you drive 10,000 miles in a month or 10 miles in a month, that cost of $200 a month to pay for your car stays the same. So again, understanding the fixed costs that go into your budget as well as the variable costs are important in terms of creating a budget that makes sense for your freelance business. And finally, let's talk about onboarding. Onboarding is the process of acclimating and becoming acclimated to a new client. So it starts in the very beginning when the client says, hey, I want to work with you, I like what you do, and I'm excited to get started. How do we start? You now have to take them through what we call the onboarding process, which again is getting more familiar with their business and also making sure that they become more familiar with you, so you guys are on the same page in terms of creating those expectations and those outcomes that both of you want to achieve from the client-freelancer relationship. And so those things may include stuff like signing a service agreement. By all means, every time you want to work with a new client or vice versa, a new client says, I want to work with you, and you come to that agreement verbally, you also have to come to that agreement in writing. Absolutely. I've heard so many horror stories in which people come to an agreement verbally and then they don't get paid because nothing was in writing. So you have to put everything in writing, even if it's for a friend, a family member. Always put something in writing. And if you need a template, you can certainly go to epicfreelancing.com. Under cool stuff, templates, there's a template for a service agreement. So please use that because you absolutely need everything in writing. Another thing might be after they sign your agreement, your service agreement, then you want to have an initial conversation or perhaps a meeting. For me, because I travel a lot, all this stuff is usually via phone or Skype. But if you're working locally, then you can certainly have face-to-face meetings if that's what makes sense for you and the client. And then you want to really dig in and find out everything you need to know in these meetings and in these conversations about the client, and also make sure the client understands the process that you guys are going to go through as you build that relationship, whether you're working month to month over X amount of time or whether you're just working on a small project or a big project. Make sure in these meetings that you're on the same page, that the expectations are the same for both you and the client, and that ultimately you agree on the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve on behalf of and for the client. And then finally, doing your research, doing your due diligence, and providing briefs if you need to for your client, or if you need to receive a brief for your client in terms of getting certain information from them. This all happens in the onboarding process. So again, it's just making sure that you guys are on the same page, that you're moving forward in the right direction with the same vision for the project or for the relationship that you're now building with the client, and understanding that this process is important for creating that foundation for freelance and client success. Alrighty, that wraps up this lesson of Start an Epic Freelance Master Course. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about how do you actually get started as a freelancer. So stay tuned for that.